Jabelin, my Jables. No, sorry, that's the wrong streamer. Welcome to the stream, everybody. It's good to be with you on a Monday evening. Apparently, my internet is being a little screwy. I keep, like, I'm certain that Dropbox is not uploading. There's nothing. I'm looking at my router right now on my phone, and it's like seems all legit. And then every so often, just we'll get a burst of dropped frames on the network. I don't know what's going on. We're just going to try and see how things go. And if things go bad, then we'll just, I don't know, we'll do whatever we're going to do. Hopefully it won't blow us out of the water or anything. And what are we going to do? We're going to answer questions about FPV. We're going to answer questions about FPV. You guys are going to ask questions here in the chat. Yes. Yes. Oh, Jim Wooten. Let's cue that question up. We'll just commiserate with Jim Wooten. You're going to ask questions in the chat. People are going to ask questions over here in the Discord. Hello, Discord. I love the people in the Discord 3% more because they're my patrons. And some of you are going to be generous enough to hit the super chat, and I'll read your questions a little later in the stream after we make all the people who can't afford super chats feel good about themselves by letting them go first. I think that's fair. I think that's how the world should work. That people who have more money should get preferential treatment, but only after we make the people who don't have as much money feel good about themselves. Right? That's the agreement. Right? Yeah. Right. No? I don't know how these things will go. Blunty is going to be queuing up the questions here in the chat. Hey, Blunty. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. You, I don't want to pry. You narrowly escaped the hurricane, I think, down there in the Alabama area. Everything going okay for you?
Yeah, you talking about the one that happened already, or the one that's about to happen?
Right. Well, we have to clarify, don't we? The one that somehow, you Alabamians pushed it off and just sent it to North Carolina. I don't know how you did it, but if there was a moment where you were like, I don't know how bad this is going to be. I might be in the path, but you're doing good. Well, as good as you can be. Yeah. And
then the next one is really strong, but also not going to be towards that.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like, let's see. Get FPV, yup. Race day quads, yup. Rotor Riot, yup. All going to get hit potentially by this next tornado, hurricane that's coming. So it's good to be Pyrodrone these days, I guess. They're in California, of course, where nothing bad ever happens. Forest fires, yup. What's going on? What's going on in the world? I don't want to think about it. Now, you know what I want to think about? I want to think about your questions. We're going to start just doing questions. We're going to do questions. And we wish the best. We wish the best to those who are affected. And if the best didn't happen to you, tots and pears, I guess. Blunty is in Alabama. You're from Alabama originally, aren't you? Is that right?
That's correct.
Born and raised. Well, at least born. Yeah. People think of you as like when I first met you, you lived in Denver, which made a lot of sense for someone in your line of work. But there's a lot of depth to you that people don't know. You watch the live streams enough, you learn things about Blunty.
Yeah, old heads will remember. OGs will remember.
Yeah. Fishing, heating and air conditioning. Both things Blunty is surprisingly competent at. Let's start with a silly question. Here's a silly question from Mars, who says, what are you going to be for Halloween? Last year for Halloween, my son picked a SCP-themed costume. And if you know what SCP is, more power to you. If you don't, it doesn't really matter. And I went as a character from the SCP universe, a doctor, somebody who has the amulet that means he can't die. and I was dressed as, I basically was a lab coat and an amulet and a corporate ID. It was a very easy costume to put together. I don't know what I'm going as this year. I don't have a specific plan yet. I guess it's coming up. It's the 7th. I should probably decide. I don't know. Blunty, do you even do anything for Halloween? You seem like the kind of guy who might just sit in and, I don't know. Here's what I wonder. I don't think you dress up for Halloween. I definitely don't think you go to a Halloween party. I feel really safe in that. But the thing that I'm debating right now is, are you a turn the lights out and mentally give the finger to the trick-or-treaters? Or do you have enough joy in your heart left that you would you put out a bowl of candy? Would you? I would guess that you're a put out a bowl of candy guy, but you're not an open the door and say what a nice costume guy. How'd I do?
Pretty good. I will say the problem is that I've never been in a house that gets trick-or-treaters.
Yeah, okay.
But I would be put a bowl out and then scared the children from the side in a nice way, but to make it a fun Halloween sort of thing.
I see. I didn't get that angle.
As a kid, I participated in the Haunted Hayride as an actor.
I didn't. See, I just learned new things about you. There's so much more to you to learn. I didn't know that. What was your character?
Like a zombie guy, and I would come out of there was a dark tunnel that it would go through, and I would come out and scare the people and chase the cart. That's
nice. That's really nice.
Yeah.
I had a friend once upon a time who would he would dress up in a mask and a big pair of overalls with a chainsaw, and when the trick-or-treaters came, he'd scare them. And we were like, you should take the chain off when you do that. And he was like, meh. I'm not getting close to him.
It's scarier with the chain, right?
Well, yeah, right. Especially when you nick the kids and they start bleeding. That is really scary. That
makes it feel real.
That's good, though. So I guess the answer to your question is you would dress up as a zombie or some other monster that you would scare the kids. That's more participation than I'm willing to do. Yeah. Okay. Let's get this question here from McShaky FPV. McShaky is in the Discord too, so thank you, McShaky, for being a patron. What impact to PIDs or flight characteristics would putting 11-inch props on my 10-inch quad have? I bought a pair to see if they fit, and they do. Wondering what to look out for. Honestly, man, the difference between 10 and 11-inch, probably nothing. Because here's the thing. You probably didn't tune the PIDs to the edge of performance. Think about it. If you tuned that 10-inch drone to the absolute limit, so it was performing as good as possible, but if anything changed, now, the whole PID tune is just broken, right? If you were to do that, then if you go from 10-inch to 11-inch, everything's going to change. It's not going to be good. You're going to have to retune it. Most people don't do that. Most people's PID tune is, let's call it, say, 80%, 85%. If 100% PID tune is you've perfectly tuned it to the edge of performance, most people's PID tune is, let's say, an 80 or 85% PID tune, maybe even worse than that. And that means that there is a lot of buffer, a lot of headroom for things to change. And now the PID tune, instead of being an 85% perfect PID tune, you put different props on it. Now it's an 80% perfect PID tune. It's a little bit worse of a PID tune, or maybe it's a little better, depending on which direction your PIDs were off, right? But probably because you probably didn't PID tune it with an inch of its life on the 10-inch props, change to 11-inch probably is going to make that big of a difference. Now, theoretically, what I would expect to see is the 11-inch props are going to make more thrust. So you would think that you would have to decrease the P gains, because P gains are usually roughly proportional to the thrust to weight ratio. On the other hand, if you didn't change your motor size, the motors are going to be a little bit less responsive. So it's possible that that would balance out. If the motors are less responsive, you want to increase your P gains to get more to push the motors harder to make them respond faster. The real answer is I don't know. The real answer is it depends on many factors. And I think if you said I'm going from 10 inches to 15 inches or maybe even 13 inches, then you'd start seeing some differences. But I think that from 10 to 11 inches, you're just not even going to notice much difference unless you have tuned it to within an inch of its life to begin with. And if you tuned it to within an inch of its life on 10 inches, then just do that again on 11 inches and you'll be right where you need to be. A little bit of a cop-out answer, but that's my honest answer. Let's do one more from the Discord. How do I finally make peace with my PIDs and filters? I went through Chris Rosser's videos and PID Toolbox guides, did some tuning, and then the guy who made the drone came back saying 4.3 tune is good for 4.5 as long as I punch the numbers in manually, but I still get some weird buzzing from the motors and jello in the GoPro. I assume it's a clean build. Well, if it's a bind and fly from iFlight, and I don't know who Ellis Van Jansen is. If it's a bind and fly from, is that the Bob 64? Is that who Ellis Van Jansen is?
Ellis is that guy who does the filming. He did I think he's the guy who did the bowling alley video.
What partnership did he do with iFlight to make a bind and fly? Oh my God, he has a cinematic FPV masterclass. I should take that. $149 to take his masterclass. I don't know. Anybody selling a masterclass, I just want to be like, oh, such a keyword. This definitely, I shouldn't shit on it. It's probably wonderful. Oh, wait, no. There's no, his webpage is down. It's not even launched. Okay. Masterclass. It hurts me. Yeah, it's the Bob 57. Okay. So first of all, don't assume that a bind and fly from iFlight is inherently going to be perfect. Like the iFlight Helion 10 or Helion 10, some people are having a lot of problems with jello on that one and vibration. And iFlight has released a bunch of different fixes. They've released some carbon fiber struts that you add to add rigidity. They've released a new PID tune. They've released new ESC settings. And some people have said, oh, you fixed it, yay. And other people have said it's still not fixed. So you can't assume that there's not going to be an issue. The first thing I would wonder is Bob 57 jello. Bob 57 jello. What do we got? We got other people complaining? Ton of jello vibration on the default settings. Tried the tune suggested by Ellis Van Jansen. Nothing changed. What's the problem? I have issues with the vibration that happens when punching full throttle. Motor mount's not fully torqued. Help minimize the effect, but it's still there. Changed out the props. Maybe that's what it is. So, like, you're not alone. You're not alone here. So that doesn't help fix your problem, but it does. You should don't assume that just because somebody who is good at cinematic flight puts out a bind and fly with a reputable manufacturer that it's inherently not going to be some issue. Jello is one of those things that affects some people sometimes and other people not at all, and it can be very difficult to put out a build that you can be 100% sure that nobody's going to experience jello on it. Music, please.
I'll just say this probably isn't like what you should have to do. Mm-hmm. But what you're describing is that you're using a 4.3 tune on 4.5 under the advisement. But iFlight I know specifically iFlight has been taking their sweet time converting all their tunes to the new firmware.
Valid.
I would personally flash it to 4.3, try the tune, and see if it gave me jello. I know that's not the ideal solution, but that's sort of my like investigative way that I would probably go, because like that's a guarantee sort of they're giving you, and it's
right. You should go back to the factory. Go back to the factory settings, is what you're saying, and see if the jello goes away. Yeah.
And at least it can give you not jello in some situation, and something about the tune is causing it, right? Or like I don't know, it like helps you dial in. That's all.
Yeah. The other thing, this is valid. I usually say that 7-inch is the prop size where you really start thinking about balancing the props. The Bob 5.7 uses 6-inch props, but if you're having problems with Jello, maybe you should consider getting a prop balancer and trying to balance the props. Switch to 2-blade props because they're easier to balance than 3-blade props, and then put them on a prop balancer and try to balance them as best you can, and see if that solves your problem. One of the sometimes when you have some people experiencing Jello and other people not, it comes down to just some people luckily got a good set of props that's properly balanced from the factory, and other people didn't. Remember, these props are injection molded. As the molds age, they wear, and the quality of the props changes over time, and that can maybe potentially relate to the issue. I think you can probably assume that the Bob 5.7 frame is mechanically sound. You could probably... I don't think a PID tune really creates Jello, generally speaking. I think that the things that create Jello are happening at such a high frequency that it's... I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying that wouldn't be like my first thought if I had Jello, would be to go to the PID tune. I would be looking at mechanical stuff, and number one thing to do mechanically is to look at the props. So maybe that's a place you can start. I don't know. Let's see here. Is a 3,300 milliamp hour, 609 gram LiPo too much for a 6-inch quad with 580 grams? Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. A good rule of thumb is that for a freestyle drone, a battery should weigh about half the dry weight of the drone. So if you had a 580 gram dry weight, I would want about 300 grams for the battery. Now, that's for an agile freestyle drone. You can go up to maybe like 1-to-1. So you're right on the edge. For cinematic flying with mild freestyle, maybe you're okay. But I certainly, it's a heavy battery, and you're gonna feel every bit of that weight, and you're gonna have to be really careful. Not overdoing it. I wonder what the disk loading of that is. Hold on a second. Let me run a calculation real quick.
Yeah, I was kind of going to ask, like, is there a point where, like, because there's going to be some point where we get too heavy of a battery, and then we're losing efficiency, so.
Well, I can't speak to that. You're right. I mean, at a certain point, you're just adding weight, and you're decreasing your flight time because the added weight, the additional battery, isn't really helping you. I don't know if 3,300 is there. I would guess that at a 1-to-1 dry weight to battery, you're not quite there yet. But what I wonder is, if we have 5-inch, are these 5-inch props? Hang on. Stop, don't do that. Prop diameter is... doesn't say. 2506, 1500 kV, 6S. You really need to know your prop size, friend. What do you think? 2506? If it was 1500 kV? 6-inch, okay. 6-inch props with a weight of... a battery weight of 609 grams and an aircraft weight of 580 grams. Does that 500 plus GoPro 13? Like, what's a GoPro 13 weigh? Like 200 grams, roughly? Let's say 200 grams. Okay, so his all up is 1389. That is a disk loading, that doesn't seem right, of 12? That's a very tolerable disk loading. Is that right? Yeah, okay, that's a disk loading of 12. That's very tolerable. I'm surprised. With a disk loading of 12, mild freestyle and cinematic flight should be very achievable.
Can you roughly give us a one-sentence explanation of what disk loading is?
Yeah, so disk loading means you take the area of the props. So, like, the prop is 6 inches. So you take the formula for the area of a circle, right? Pi 2 pi r squared, right? 2 pi r squared, pi d squared, right? Yes. That's the area of a circle. You have 4 props, so you take that, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you add up that area, and then you take the weight of the aircraft divided by the area of the props. And that is a parameter called disk loading. And disk loading predicts basically like it kind of relates to the thrust to weight ratio a little bit, but it predicts the sort of agility of a quadcopter. A quadcopter with a very low disk loading is going to be very light, very agile, and very floaty. A quadcopter with a very high disk loading is going to be very unresponsive, very heavy, and very sort of flingy, but not very floaty. As a rule of thumb, a disk loading below 6 means the aircraft is really too light, and you're not really you should have bigger motors. Your props are too big for your motors if your disk loading is below about 6, and if your disk loading is above about, it's hard to give a hard number, but I think a disk loading above about 23 or 25 is just too heavy to really, like, you're barely going to be able to get off the ground with a disk loading around 25. So a disk loading of 12, like for a freestyle or racing drone, a typical disk loading is around 8 to 10 maybe. A disk loading of 7 or 8 for a very light racing drone. And then as you get into heavier things like Cinewhoops, you get to disk loadings of like 12 or 15. I'm making those numbers up because I don't actually have them memorized. A disk loading of 18 is high, but not like intolerably high. I think you're in right about where you think that you should be, in that you're heavy, you're going to be able to do cinematic stuff, you're going to have a little bit of trouble with freestyle moves like split S's, but you probably can still do them, and I think that's reasonable. Yeah, okay. Let's do some super chats. We got a few super chats. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading the super chats, and then I'm going to keep reading them until I run out of super chats. So if you want to get your question answered promptly, now is the time to leave a super chat. Do you know what target does the DYS F7 stack with F722 flight controller take? No, not at all. Nope. I mean, I could try to look. ICM 42688P. Let's just do a little Google search. I mean, I don't know. I feel like you probably have done this. But sometimes. Here we go. DYS F722 with the ICM blah, blah, blah. There's our flight controller. There's these pop-ups that we were complaining about, Blunty. Firmware Betaflight. Not helpful. Not helpful. Okay, that's not very helpful. It's not going to be here. It's the same. It's going to be the same information. I'm just looking to see if they give us AT. That's the OSD chip, though. That doesn't say. Okay. There doesn't seem. I can't find like a DYS website. So next, we're going to go here. We're just going to type DYS. None of those look right. Nope. I don't know. I literally don't know. So I would just buy one. I would spend $40 and I would buy one. And it would come in the mail and I would look at what target was on it. What do you got, Blunty? You got something better?
Well, hold on, sorry. I spoke a little too soon. Let me check something. Okay, it says the target is Betaflight, but that can't be right.
That's not a target.
There's a Betaflight F4. There's not an F7 though, right? No, there's not an F7.
No,
well,
that's no.
FPVM Betaflight.
That's
F7.
the old FPV model Betaflight F7 flight controller. That doesn't. Yeah. I don't think that's right.
It's just interesting that under firmware target it lists Betaflight. It's like that's not helpful.
I mean, I have to assume that's just a translation problem or a they've just put the wrong information. And I can't find any. It's all just the same information. It's all the same information. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to search for this image. And I'm going to try to find other web pages that have this image and see if they give me any additional information. I don't think DYS has a website. I certainly can't find it. No. No, I don't care about Kosovo. Why do I care about Kosovo? It's all just the same information.
We care about Kosovo here. It's okay.
No, I mean, it doesn't matter if it thinks I'm in Kosovo or whatever. Just show me the website. I don't want to pop-ups. Sorry, Kosovo. I'm not trying to, disrespect you. No, nothing helpful at all. Nothing helpful at all. Nope. Mamba Mark IV. That's a different flight controller, though. This is not a diatone. I got nothing. Nope, I got nothing. And they don't have a website. They don't exist. So spend $40, buy one, see what it comes with. I mean, there are other answers that would get you the answer better, but that's the last ditch, I know I said that because the website was like, "Hey, are you in Kosovo?" and wanted to localize the website for me. Yeah, no. I'm not using a VPN. It just thinks I'm in Kosovo for some reason. Anyway,
the website was a Kosovo FPV website.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Thanks, Kosovo. Donald Cup, thank you for a $10 super chat. Can you make a tutorial on wireless head trackers? I have no plans to do that. I have a video where I used a wired head tracker. I have no plan to do a wireless head tracker right now. Thank you for the donation. Thank you for the request. I don't. That's just I have other stuff I'm working on, and that isn't something I'm interested in at this moment. I'm helping to start a drone club in my high school, and I saw your segment from a previous live stream on this. Will you take a look at the list? Link in the Discord. Thank you for a $5 super chat. Where's this list in the Discord, Blunty? Do you got that handy? Link for drone club list. I got it. Let's see what we got here. We got an equipment list. All right, well, for $5 super chat, I'll go through. Radio Master Pocket. It's a great starter radio. It's the least expensive starter radio. That's good. Batteries. Velocidrone. Not bad. You're going to need more than one Velocidrone license, aren't you? Or do they have some kind of a education and academic license? Oh, nice. Next strap, debatable. Oh, I see. This is per simulator. I see. Next strap, debatable. You could save yourself, $7 if you didn't want that. I like a neck strap, but especially for a radio like the Pocket, people will hold it in their hands. It's fine. Depends on your budget. Per drone, Mobula 7, fine choice. We Bleed FPV batteries. Are these the good ones? Are you getting the good ones? You are getting, good choice. Those are great batteries. Totally get that. V-Fly Whoop Store. Why are you getting 2 V-Fly Whoop Stores per drone? Seems excessive. I think 1 Whoop Store per drone is probably fine. How many batteries? You can definitely keep up with yourself with 1 per drone. Barrel plug. What is that for? What are you going to power it with? What are you going to power it with? That plug is going to go on. I don't know. Also, why are there 0.2 plugs per drone? That doesn't seem right. Fat Shark Echo goggles. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. You could do worse. $100 for a set of analog goggles. Not bad. Okay. Oh, here's the power supply for the Whoop Store chargers. That's overkill. You don't need 400 watts. Unless you're running like all... Are you going to run all the chargers? I see. You're going to run all the chargers off this one power supply, aren't you? Okay, now the plugs make sense. I still don't think you need more than one Whoop Store per drone, though. And maybe not even that many. We got some gates. Fine. Nuclear as a timing system. Highly recommend. Well worth the money. Good. Fine. All good. Looking good. 12 sim setups. 8 drones. Fixed costs. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Fat Shark Echo, I do not think comes with a battery. I think you will need like a 2-cell battery, or I think it can power off a USB as well. But does it have a built-in? Even if it has a built-in, does it have a built-in battery? USB-C charge port. I see. It must have a built-in battery. Maybe it does come with a battery. Because it's got a charge port, and it doesn't have any DC input jack that I can see. Let's see if we can get a bottom view. No, there's no DC input. So it must have an internal battery, probably an 18650, and it charges off of USB-C. So that's nice. You're going to want some good USB-C chargers or power banks to run those off of. Should I get the batteries direct connect or pigtail? That depends. If you're getting the Mobula 7, is the pigtail long enough? I probably... I don't know. It doesn't... I'm not sure that pigtail is going to be long enough. I think you're going to need pigtail batteries, because I don't think this pigtail will reach around to the direct connect batteries if you get them. So I would get the pigtail batteries. Yep. Yeah, all right. Yep. Checks out. I that's my thoughts. Best of luck.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Can we bring up a chat from William NS? It says the DYS stack uses Mamba F722 2022B. It took a minute to find because I don't want the stack anymore. It caught on fire.
Okay.
So
there you go.
That's at least worth a shot if you have that board and you need something to flash. Though presumably if you have the board, you know what target is on it. So
that may suggest why the Mamba wiring diagrams kept popping up. Thank you for that information, William. I don't know how I would have found that except by having it. Oh. dys.hk. They do have a website.
Don't worry, there's nothing there. Already got
it. Okay, well.
Same diagram we saw already.
But no additional information.
Correct.
Ugh. All right. Is it worth using older flight controllers? Thank you for $5 Australian. I have a Betaflight F7 from an old build. Betaflight F7 is a great flight controller. It's an F7. You can still use it. What's it going to do that you wouldn't be able to do? Yosferos. Well, how about that? Yosferos left another $500 super chat.
He has returned.
Thank you, man. That's incredibly generous of you. I don't know what to say. There we go. Well,
happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday to you. Thank you for the donation. what else to do. Someone says, Joseph Tafari says he's the Elon Musk of FPV. I got one of those. Oh shit! Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I've got one of those. You know, the messages where they go, "Oh hey, looking forward to seeing you this weekend," and then you go, "I'm sorry, who is this?" And they go, "Don't you remember? It's me, Deborah." And then you're like, "Deborah, I don't know any Deborah." And they're like, "Oh, sorry, it's a wrong number." And then they try and scam you out of money. That thing. So, Oh, I blocked it. I blocked it and deleted it. I don't have it. She was like, "It's me, Deborah," and she sends a picture of this woman, you know, that's I'm supposed to be like, "Oh, damn, Deborah's a hottie. I should give her all my money." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Deborah. I think you have a wrong number. My name's Elon." And I sent a picture of Elon Musk looking all dapper. And and to this scammer's credit, they went, "Oh, Mr. Musk, how nice to meet you. Really looking forward to hearing more about your new Tesla." And I was like, "Oh, this guy's good. This guy's good." Like, "Oh, you're going to play along. Good for you. Because you know I'm not Elon Musk. Why are you still in it?" They still think they can get some money out of me if they play along. That's why. So I immediately just blocked. I was like, okay, this game's over. I blocked them. Greasy Official, thank you for a $2 super chat. Greasy says, thanks for all the help. Thank you. Greasy for the $2 donation. Greg Willie says, thank you for a $10 super chat. Thanks for all you and all your videos. I was able to complete my very first quad build. SpeedyB Mario 5 with F405 V4 stack. Your videos were integral to a successful build. Thanks a million. Thank you so much for the kind words, Greg. Very happy I was able to help get you in the air. That's really what I live for, to be honest with you. 73 FPV. Thank you for a $20 super chat. I'm building a quad mullet 3.5 split with a 20x20 mount, 03 ELRS. What is the best quality stack and AM32 ESC? For 20x20 mount, I like the Foxier Reaper. I like the Foxier Reaper because that's what all the racers run when they run 20mm stacks. And to me, the biggest thing I look for in a 20mm stack is reliability, is durability. It has the plugs and stuff that it needs. I don't think it's an AM32. I don't know how many choices you have for AM32 ESCs with a 20x20 stack, but you can, if you care about such things, you can always flash it over to AM32, assuming the hardware is supported. I'm not 100% sure that it is. But whenever people ask me, please recommend a 20x20 stack, I say the Foxier Reaper is my first go-to. Virus Jack, thank you for a $2 super chat. How long should I stay on one track to improve overall? That's a great question. And I should preface my answer by saying I am not a top racer. So anytime people ask me for advice about racing, you need to understand that you're going to get much different advice from me than you would get from somebody like Alex Vanover, Evan Turner, Min Chan Kim, all the top racers who but in a way, I argue, advice from a normie like me may be more relevant to a beginner than someone who is in the stratosphere. At least that's what I tell myself to try and make myself feel relevant. And personally, what I find is that if I stay on one track and grind, it can be super fun because, I feel like you start out and you're as good as you are. And then slowly you start finding places to make improvements. And the first, let's say I do a lap on a track and it's 25 seconds. My first lap's 25 seconds, right? Well, immediately I can get better. I do 5 more laps and now I'm down to 22 seconds, okay? And then you reach a point where the easy gains are gone. And now you're in that sweet spot where you are improving, okay? And what I want to do, I think, is I want to stay in that sweet spot where I'm improving. You start out, you make the easy gains, where it's like, if I just try a little harder, then my lap time will get faster. And then you reach a point where even though you're trying your hardest, your lap times still aren't getting any faster. And now you have to figure out something new. You have to do something different that you weren't doing before. You have to figure out what that is. And then your lap times get like 3/4 of a second faster. Now you're outside the realm of, oh, I'm just going to shave 2 seconds off without even trying. Right? And as long as you're making that progress, I think it's good to like stay there. Because if I switch to another track, now I'm going to have to learn the track. I'm going to have to figure out the lines, and I'm going to have to get back in that sweet spot. I'm going to have to make those easy gains. I'm going to do another 15 or 20 laps before I get down in that sweet spot where now I have to work to progress. And then you reach a point where you're just banging your head against a wall. Your lap times are 19.1, 19.2, 19.0, 18.9. Oh, I broke 19. I'm in the 18s. 19.3, 19.5. Ah! And you're getting frustrated. And you're just not making any progress, no matter how. And that's when you need to just, in my opinion, take a breath. Take a breath. Maybe come back and try again. But doing the same thing again and again and again doesn't make you better. It only makes you better at doing that same thing again and again and again. And so if you are grinding laps and not improving, you're just getting better at getting 19.1s. You're not getting better at getting an 18.5. So you have to intellectually go back and ask yourself or ask someone else, what do I need to do differently to get to the next plateau? And just beating your head against the wall doesn't make you faster. That's what I would say. The other thing I would say is, as long as you're having fun and you don't feel like you're burning out, keep trying. But be aware that I think there's some people out there who maybe spend an hour grinding, and they're like, you see a guy and he's like, I practice trying to do a kickflip for hours and hours and hours. So how many kickflips did you do? None. Okay, well, did you actually get better at doing kickflips? Or are you just like throwing yourself at the ground for an hour and just getting a lot of bruises? Like, you have to actually be making progress, or you're just kind of, sometimes you got to beat your head against the wall for a while before you break through. Like, I'm not saying there's not value there. You just got to kind of know when you're hitting that point. Okay. Andrew Abraham Alex, thank you for 900 rupees. Big fan from India. I'm thinking about building my first FPV quad, and I came across the DarkMatter Brahma stack F450. Can you check it out and give an opinion? Sure, can do. So we got a 50 amp ESC. It's a surprisingly small number of capacitors. I would expect to see more capacitors. But, okay. Got some voltage regulators. WinBond. Got a data flash chip. That's good. Solder pads are a little small. Not a deal breaker. A little annoying, though. F405, BMI 270 gyro, DSP 310 barometer. Doesn't really matter for Betaflight, but nice to have a barometer, I guess. 4 UARTs, 8 motors, 5 volt, 9 volt, 2 amp. Be nice to have a little higher output on the BECs. Not a deal breaker. Especially because that 2 amps may be, if that's like an honest 2 amps, okay. If it's marketing BS and that 2 amps is really 1.5 amps, then it starts to be an issue. You may not be able to like run a digital VTX. Direct solder would be nice if it had a plug for the digital VTX, but direct solder is okay. Proudly made in India. Good. The feature set is okay. If you're going to do digital, it would be nice if they had a plug for the digital VTX. F405 is okay. How many actual usable UARTs do they have? 1, 2, 3. S-Bus 4. It says 4 UARTs. Okay, so all 4 UARTs are broken out with separate TX RX pads. So you're not giving up a UART to the S-Bus pad. You're not losing a UART. That's nice.
To me, as just somebody who's seen boards for a long time,
Yeah.
this looks like a board that was built by somebody who wants to make a good board, but was limited by machinery.
I agree.
Like, this is something that's easier for a pick and place to make. That's not a really good pick and place, right? Because the parts are a little more separated, and it's a little less intensive a board design. Probably less layers than normal. I don't think any of that makes it worse. But like you mentioned, like the lack of caps on the ESC, like those things might rear their head.
Yeah.
But
also, like if you look, you see a lot of you see this crooked capacitor here. You see this crooked. Is that an oscillator? I think it's 71 megahertz. You got a crooked oscillator here, and again, I don't want to this looks to me like somebody in India decided they want to make local stuff, and they're doing the best they can with what they got. I don't want to sound like I'm shitting on it, but you asked my opinion of it, and so I think that you're not going to get the same degree of quality in terms of, let's say defect rate off the line. It looks like it's being manufactured with a little bit lower standards, because there are manufacturers who, if the inductors came off the line crooked like this, they'd be like, what is wrong with that? You send that back and you fix it. What's wrong with our machine? Oh, they would still sell this one. This one's fine. But, it does look like a little bit of a simpler board. That's an interesting observation, Blunty, that the parts are more spread out. You see a lot of the vias here and a lot of the traces. It looks like a relatively unsophisticated board design. And maybe you see the vias and the traces because it's maybe it's fewer layers on the PCB because they could, It seems like it's probably a functional flight controller. I don't know how the pricing. I don't know how much. If 6,000 rupees is a lot, because I don't know. It's $71. Now I don't know how much comparable flight controllers are. Are comparable flight controllers $150? So is this a great price? This is, if this was being sold to me for $70, I'd be like, get this out of my face. I can buy much better stuff for $70, but I know the Indian market is very restrictive in what's available, and to be able to buy something made locally has a lot of appeal. So, I think that if you could get a board like an iFlight board or something, like a mass-produced Chinese board for a similar price, you 100% should. Because it probably is built to better standards. But if you can't, and I know there are some import problems in India, I think this is fine. To me, this doesn't look like the build quality I would expect from a $70 flight controller. Well, it's a whole stack. Maybe. Debatable.
Interesting. Can you check while you're doing this, I guess? There's a Vishnu Mark III ESC that they make. Kind of just while we're on this topic.
Okay.
And it looks like they either got it designed somewhere else or it was done on a better machine. The back of it is way more detailed.
Oh, God, yeah. No, this feels like a completely different board design or a completely different factory.
This feels like, I'll be honest with you, this feels like a white label from a Chinese factory, but it says it's designed and manufactured in India, which means maybe they just got a better machine. Maybe it's a different model or an update. We don't really know, right? It's speculation.
We don't know. Yeah, this looks much more sophisticated and much higher quality. Again, we're just looking, though. We don't know. BB21 4-tier. I don't know what ESC, what FET driver that is. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's enough time spent on that, I think. Thank you for the question. Adam Barlow, thank you for a $10 super chat. I went down the antenna rabbit hole, and now I can't decide what Express LRS RX and VTX antenna I need for a 5-inch freestyle build. Dual versus single, true diversity. Do I need an LNA, etc.? For a freestyle build with moderate range, you do not need diversity. You do not need an LNA power amplifier. That's more for the telemetry side. Just a regular old, if you're going out to 3 to 5 kilometers, just a regular old Happy Model EP1 is fine. That's my opinion. Yeah, should be fine. What parts would you suggest for a Gin 2.5 build? Think for $2 Australian. What is a Gin 2.5? The quad mullet, Gin 2.5, F5 to F2.5 split. Yeah. I don't know about that. We got anything on rotor builds? Nope. I don't know about that. I don't think I have a suggestion. A 2.5 inch. I think a lot of the parts are going to be common. Oh, here's rotor builds. There we go. Okay, great. I don't know why I couldn't find this. Okay, so this website is rotorbuilds.com. rotorbuilds.com, and it has builds of quadcopters that people have done. And I don't know why I didn't find this when I searched, but now I have found it. The Gin F2.5 split, there are 4 complete builds. What I would do is I would look at these 4 complete builds that other people have done, and I would pick parts based on what they've built. That would be my suggestion, would be to copy someone else's build who had done it. I haven't done one. I like these 1404 motors. Yeah, what's up? What am I missing, Blunty?
Ciati says 1404 4600s, and then also Joseph Tahari says 1404 4600s.
Oh, and this build is also 1404 4600s.
And they both say T-motor. They both brought up T-motor, so maybe consider.
They don't like iFlight, huh?
I don't think they said that.
Oh, here's the T-motor 1404 2900s. That's a completely different KV. The iFlight motor looks way better. It's a Unibel? Why do they like the T-motor 1404? That's the wrong KV anyway. That must be for a 6S, I guess. Yeah, 6S. These other builds must be for 4S, I would think.
Yes, they say they're better. Everybody says they're better.
Okay. Well, the T-motors it is. Diatone Mamba F40 Mini 20x20 ESC. Mamba Speedy Bee Mini. I don't know about that. All right, so we want the that's for a 6S 2900 kV 1404. Here we've got Omnibus F4 Nano. Wow, I haven't seen an Omnibus flight controller in a long time. How about that?
When's this build from?
Yeah. How long has this frame been around? T-Motor Mini F7. That's a solid choice. I like the T-Motor Mini. Of course, there's always the Foxeer Reaper 20mm that I suggested earlier. It's not cheap, I'll tell you what. Yeah, so what we're hearing is get the T-Motor 1404 motors, and then take a look at some of these other builds, and that'll get you in the ballpark of correct. I feel like that was $2 worth of service. We could have gone a little more in depth, but... Joseph Tahari, I agree with you. I don't see a point of using 6S on a 2.5 inch build. I think that's silly. I think 4S is more than enough voltage for a 2.5-inch prop. But if you can't get the 29 those T-motor motors in the right kV, maybe there's a reason for that. Joe Turkal, thank you for a $5 super chat. What's the best antenna configuration for SkyZone 04X goggles with emergency rapid fire? I run lollipops on my quads. I would get like a TrueRC X Air or X2 Air antenna as my directional. It's going to be right-hand polarized because that's probably what's on your quad. TrueRC X2 Air or X Air, going to give you a nice medium high gain. You're going to want a 45-degree adapter, I believe, to get this pointed the right way. And I don't remember if it's, I think it's RPSMA, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So make sure you buy the right connector. Right-hand polarized. And that's going to be your patch antenna. And then what I like for... Does he have like a longer... Omni, 508 gigahertz Omni, the Singularity, yeah. And then get something like the Singularity for your Omni, and the longer antennas will stick up higher above your head and give you better coverage. So I would get one of the ones with the longer. Just how long are you comfortable with it sticking up? That's a great choice. Concrete Bone FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. I have some Steel V3 Legacy 2345 kV motors. What are your thoughts on running them on 6S with a 75% throttle cap? Yeah, you should be okay to do that. And I think anything up to about a 75-80% throttle cap, you usually get away with it. So I think that would be fine. I can't say for sure that you won't run into troubles, but I think that would be fine. Thank you for a $5 super chat from R3 Anthrax. I watched your video on the gimbal LED mod for the Radiomaster TX16S. Does it work better on the Mark II, or should I not even bother? I don't remember. I think the Mark II sets the gimbals a little deeper in the face. I honestly don't know. I don't know about that. I think you still have issues with the gimbals rubbing, if it is the thing you're asking about. I don't think it solves the issue. Will Cole, thank you for a $10 super chat, and a thank you for answering my silly whoop and battery connection type questions on Discord. Glad to answer your questions. There's no silly questions except the unasked question. All right, that's what they say. Deuce FPV, thank you for a $20 super chat. I have a Sector 5 with Vista and GPS module, plug and play, no receiver. I'm looking to get a FreeSky or Futaba receiver that supports telemetry so I can bind to my TX16S. I already use FreeSky and ELRS receivers. Okay, don't buy Futaba. Don't buy Futaba. There's no reason for you to buy Futaba. The TX16S, I don't know, does the multi-protocol module support Futaba? Maybe it does. Doesn't matter. No reason to do that. If you already have FreeSky and ELRS receivers, why wouldn't you get an ELRS receiver for it? You could get FreeSky. Why FlySky? Why FlySky or Futaba? You already have Express ELRS. Why are you even thinking about getting FlySky or Futaba? You're hurting me. I'm sad that you even asked that. What am I missing? There's got to be something. My emotional reaction to the idea that someone would intentionally buy a FlySky or Futaba receiver when they already have Express LRS is clouding my mind to the reason, some aspect of this question that I'm missing. You want to bind them to your TX16S? Get an Express LRS module, put it in the back of your TX16S, and never buy a FreeSky, FlySky, or Futaba receiver ever again. That's my opinion. What am I missing here? Deuce FPV, if I want to give you a sincere answer to your question, And right now, all I've done is just go. Blah, 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 blah. So if you want to add some context as to like why you want a FlySky or Futaba receiver, by all means, Blunty, if you'd keep an eye on the chat for Deuce to comment. He left a $20 super chat, so I feel like I owe him at least a little back and forth. That's a very generous super chat. But my actual answer would be just get Express LRS and never look back. The Soaring, thank you for 100 Czech Karuna, I believe. Recently, you mentioned V2 goggles in O3 can't record OSD. I'm actually working on a solution. I have a few test flights with 4K O3 footage and nice OSD overlay. Awesome. Looking forward to seeing it. Because I use a multi-protocol radio. Yeah, okay, Deuce. So your TX16S has a 4-in-1 module. I'm not saying you throw your TX16S out. I'm just saying you spend $40 on a Radiomaster Nomad module, put it in the back of your TX16S, and never use that multi-protocol module ever again, except on birds that like happen to have a FreeSky receiver in them and you don't want to put a new ExpressLS receiver in them. I get that. But never put a new Futaba, FlySky, whatever receiver in a new build ever again, because you're going to spend $20 on a FlySky receiver that works worse and has worse range and is more of a hassle. Hard to admit. Anything is more of a hassle than Express LRS. Yeah, spend $40 on an Express LRS Nomad module, put it in the back of that radio, and never look back. Nomad module, I could not believe the price on this. $45 for the Nomad dual band module. The frickin'... The Ranger module isn't that cheap. No, not that one. That's the super expensive one. Hold on. No! Oh my God! Excuse me. Just buy this one. $40. Just do that and never look back. Look, you're buying Futaba equipment. You have money to spend. Okay? Anyone who intentionally buys Futaba equipment has money to spend. Futaba micro S-Bus receiver. This is going to be $60. I predict. Okay, it's not $60. It's only $40. No, those are compatible. Let's go to an official Futaba receiver. Here we go. It's only $30. Okay, Futaba. I take it back. It's $30. That's only $10 less than the module that you're going to buy.
Oh, yeah, and you could have S-Bus. How wonderful.
And you can still have S-Bus if you want S-Bus. Exactly. Anyway. Never voluntarily buy a FreeSky receiver ever again. If you have to, because there's an actual legitimate reason why you must do it, okay. Never do it voluntarily. HD0 Lux Cam versus Eco Cam, which is better weight versus quality, says Atreides. Atreides, I can tell you I've flown the HD0 Lux Cam on the HD0, the new HD0 Micro Freestyle. I actually have the review of that coming out this week. I haven't flown the Eco Cam. Both the Lux Cam and the Eco Cam use a CVBS analog signal going into the VTX. So neither of them are full digital. So you should expect to see a little bit of reduction in image quality. But really, it's just about the sensor and the weight of the camera. The Eco Cam is slightly lighter, although not that much lighter. The Lux Cam has a little bit better low light performance. Honestly, I can't say because I haven't flown the Eco Cam, right? So we could both Google the Eco Cam and compare them. But like the Lux Cam is a little bit heavier, so you would kind of expect it to have maybe a little bit, like it has better low light performance, so maybe it's got a little bigger sensor and a little better image quality. I think the difference is probably pretty negligible. Like, do we have any comparison? Where's the Whoop light? Use the Eco Cam. Oh, is that the same lighting conditions? Oh, okay, hang on. He dove down. Yeah. So this isn't a comparison to the Lux, though. Tiny whoop pinch. Oh, this is an analog. Eco seems better than analog. I don't know, man. I'm not gonna just like make some shit up here. I haven't flown both of them. I've only flown the Lux Cam. FPV.wiki says I have both and I would take the Lux all day. Yeah, the weight difference between them is like 0.4 of a gram, which is not nothing, but it's pretty small. Anybody in the chat have both? And you can comment, because I don't and I can't. But I sure will cash that check on your super chat. Thank you for your donation. Let's see if the chat can give you any more advice. If I had to pick, I'd pick the Lux. It's not that much heavier, and I've flown it, and I think it looks pretty good. And it has marginally better low light connection. FPV.wiki says for about a half a gram, the Lux pick is so much better. Sounds like there's a big difference. Deuce FPV, thank you for a $10 super chat. I'm looking for a 6-plug wire that I can solder to my Vista and plug into my Spectre F722 Mini, yada, yada, yada. Can you help me find one to purchase, please? Yes, absolutely. O3 air unit wire cable. Replacement, here we go, bingo. Replacement power data wiring harness for DJI O3, choose length. This will work for you. Just cut one end of this off and you are good to go. You should be good to go. Pick the length you want. Cut one end off. Should be good to go. You could also buy an SH cable set and just make your own. Are the lengths, how long are they? These go up to 15 centimeters, so the other was 120 centimeters. So you can just make your own if you want to. Dave T, thank you for a $10 super chat. New Mobula 6 2024 analog has bad interference at certain RPM ranges. Changed props and channels using the karate presets, otherwise stock. What else to change? If you're getting bad analog video interference in a certain RPM range, I don't think your PIDs and your props are going to do that. I would try to move the video antenna. Is the video antenna laying across the board somehow? Try and move the video antenna so it hangs out the back of the board instead of laying across the board. Maybe that's where it's picking it up. You could try changing the PWM frequency of the motors. I'm not convinced that'll do it, but maybe a higher PWM frequency? Dave T says it's up through the canopy vertical. If it's internal to the board, man, I don't know how much you're going to be able to do. Try changing the PWM frequency.
Yeah, the other thing is, like, if you're desperate to fix it, then maybe like a cap on 3.3.
I mean, that
you
won't
shouldn't
hurt.
have to do that.
Yeah.
But
Little capacitor. I mean, on the battery lead, on the 3.3 volt. That wouldn't hurt. The problem is with those all-in-ones, I think there's not, like, what are you going to do? It's not like you can separate anything. I'm being told that Nick Burns has a video about the Lux Cam and the Eco. If so, I'd love to give him a shout out for that. Is this video, Lux camera hits the market? Does he have the comparison to the Eco here? Oh yeah, he's got the Race HD here and the Freestyle with the Lux camera. Okay, so this is the video you should watch if you want to compare the Lux camera to the Eco. As far as the Lux canopy goes, they've released the 3D prints for the HD0 Freestyle, and you can print this canopy for the Lux. I haven't put it on yet, but how much punch am I losing with a 3,000 milliamp hour lithium ion versus a 3,300 lipo, and how much flight time? There's no way I could approximate those numbers. If you're going, that doesn't add up. How does it 3,000? Oh no, I see. So your lithium ion is roughly half the weight of your lithium polymer. So you have less weight, but a ton less C rating. As far as flight time goes, you have 3,000 milliamp hours versus 3,300 milliamp hours. Your flight time should be about the same. However, you're 300 grams lighter with the lithium ion, so your flight time still, but you have slightly fewer milliamp hours. I think your flight time is going to be about the same because the milliamp hours are pretty close to the same, and there's not that much difference in weight. You're going to have much less punch because that battery's going to have such a low C rating, it'll sag out much sooner. However, it's a little bit lighter weight, so you can get some of that back. Sunshine says we've got this video, which is a warning about noise on the Mob 6 2024. I will say I have a Mob 6 2024 and didn't have this issue, but well, he had a pretty hard crash. It's hard to blame the quadcopter for that. The cable connecting the camera to the VTX had a broken connector. You may want to check that. This is not correct channel selected. That's not right. This is not an incorrect camera channel. Black Jungle wants to know, you're flying and lose video behind something. Do you punch out or disarm? That depends entirely on where I'm flying. I'm going to make the judgment call of whether I will do more damage or create more of a problem for whatever's on the ground by punching out versus disarming. Okay? If I'm flying somewhere that's a relatively tight environment, and I know that if I throttle into something, I'm going to cause property damage or potentially injury to a person or, an animal, then I'm going to disarm. Because probably just dumping the quad is more likely to avoid a problem than powering up. On the other hand, if I feel pretty confident that I was flat and level, and if I feel pretty confident that if I do climb, I'm just going to be going out into the woods or something, then I might try to save it. It's a judgment call that you make every single time it happens. And the best thing to do is to never put yourself in a situation where if you lose video, you're uncertain as to whether it's safe to disarm or keep flying. The best case scenario is that you're flying, and whether you choose to disarm or whether you choose to power out and try to get video back, you can feel confident that no one will be hurt and nothing significant will be damaged except maybe your quadcopter. If you're doing a building dive over a populated sidewalk, or you're flying over a street with traffic on it, and you lose video, you have a very hard decision to make, and the consequences of making that decision wrong could be severe, both for you and for someone on the ground. And I'm not going to be like, you kids don't do anything dangerous. You're ruining the hobby. I'm not going to be that guy. There have been times in my life where I've done things that if other people saw them, they'd be like, well, that was risky and I'm not comfortable with it. Most of those things you haven't seen on the internet. But the best case scenario is that you don't put yourself in that situation. If you're in that situation, you have to make a judgment call. I was recently, I was watching a beginner fly. I'm standing right next to him. And he was flying in an area where if he had disarmed, he potentially could have crashed on things that shouldn't be crashed on. And he was doing it with the full permission and consent of the people in charge of the things that could be crashed on. And yet, still, it would have been very awkward for him and potentially for me if he had dumped his quad and landed on somebody's car, even though he technically had permission to be doing what he was doing. It was one of those situations where, like, yeah, go ahead, do it. Don't fuck it up. And then he lost video and pretend it was like, oh shit. And I pulled my goggles off and I looked around. Well, first I waited for a fraction of a second to see if video was going to come back. It didn't come back. I lifted my goggles. Thankfully, I saw his quadcopter up in the air. I got visual on it. I took his controller. I immediately flipped it into angle mode because I can't fly line of sight acro mode very well. And then thankfully I just guessed at what throttle position would cause it to not fly away. And I pushed the sticks around. I figured out which way it was flying and I got it home line of sight. That was lucky. If I had lifted my goggles and not been able to see the aircraft, I would have had no choice but to disarm. And then just cross my fingers that it landed somewhere safe and didn't hurt somebody and didn't cause embarrassing property damage. It was a hair-raising moment. And thankfully, it worked out. You just have to make that call. And if you make the call wrong, you have to own up to the consequences. And if you're not comfortable with that, then don't put yourself in that situation is my actual advice. Thank you, Gregory Dahl, for a $2 super chat. Marhotier. What motors should I use for a 4S 3.5-inch freestyle build? I come from 5-inch, so I'd like something that flies similar. I got 1404 3800 kV, and it's very underpowered. What is it, Ciotti? 1608? What's the recommended motor for a 4S 3.5-inch freestyle build? Ciotti, save me! Ciotti FPV, CIOTTI. He's in the chat. He's got a YouTube channel. He knows a lot about micros. And honestly, I just, you'd think by now I would know these things. But if I knew these things, I wouldn't have the chance to shout Ciotti out every time somebody asks me a question like this. And I wouldn't want to take that away from him. Recommendations for a 3.5-inch freestyle build that feels like a 5-inch. He's got a 1404 3800 kV. It's very underpowered. 1804 3500 kV. Nice. 1605, 1604. 1604 at the smallest. 1804s will rip. There we go. So your motors are too small. Now James Reedy is going with a 1404, but a higher kV. I think that bigger motors are going to be, you're going to give you a little extra weight, and that's going to give you a little bit more of a disc loading like a 5-inch. 1604, 1804, 3800 kV-ish. That's where you want to be. What do you think about Neutron RC? I don't have any particular opinion about Neutron RC, Ron. They were one of the first companies to put out the AM32 flight controllers. I heard some rumors. I want to reiterate, I don't have any opinion about them. I did hear some rumors. They're like, oh, they're a problem. We don't like them. But that may say more about the person spreading the rumors than than the company themselves. I haven't heard huge complaints about their products. I don't really know. Ciotti says 1404s get hot and lose power and efficiency on 260 plus gram 3.5-inch builds. Even at a higher kV, the 1404s aren't going to work well. You need a bigger motor to dissipate that heat to make the most out of the power. You're not going to get the RPMs out of the motor because it'll overheat if the quad is too heavy. Travone Suki says, thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm new to FPV and I use TBS. I want some advice on how to upgrade an old Nazgul Titan XL to a newer flight controller in ESC. Is it worth it? No, it's not worth it. If it flies, just keep flying it. Eventually, the flight controller or ESC will die, and then you can think about upgrading it. But if it flies, just keep flying it. There's no compelling reason to throw out a perfectly functional flight controller and ESC just to put a different one on there. There's nothing you're going to gain in terms of performance, in terms of capabilities. If you really want to upgrade it to Betaflight 4.5, but know that you're going to have to rebuild the configuration from scratch, you may have to rebuild the PID tune from scratch. And for God's sake, make sure that you do a CLI dump backup before you upgrade in case you change your mind and want to undo it. Quad City Bay Area, we currently have no reports, as far as I know, of any enforcement action of remote ID. Maybe there was like one guy who flew a drone somewhere like over a stadium, and one of the charges they racked up on him was that he didn't have remote ID. Blunty, any input on this? I know you track this kind of thing a little more than I do.
Yeah, they don't like publicly release the civil penalties like till like way in the future, but as far as I know, I've never heard of a report of it happening.
Yeah. Okay.
Certainly we have not seen like, the way I expect it to start is them to start showing up at large FPV or drone events and trying to enforce it in mass in steps, or like you said, somebody doing something really stupid and then also getting nailed for remote ID.
That's how they did it in the past with the registration requirements or the Part 107 requirements, is someone would do something just jaw-droppingly stupid, like fly a drone through an airport or over a sports stadium or onto the White House lawn or some dumb shit like that. And then the FAA would come and they would just throw the book at the guy. And one of the things they would throw at them is, hey, you didn't register your drone. But it's not like they were like, this guy didn't register his drone. Let's get him, boys. That was just one thing they tagged on. Pete FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm interested in building a bi-blade ductless 65mm outdoor micro whoop. What do you recommend for KV? A bi-blade ductless. You're building something like a little like 65mm. Huh. 65. Is that like the Babito? Like, I'm thinking of the Flywoo ones, but they are... I don't think they're 65. What's the prop size for this? 35mm props. I think that's still... .3 inches. I think the tiny whip props are like 31. I don't know. Yeah, 31. Does anyone know? I mean, it's easy to build an open prop. It's easy to build an open prop tiny whoop. Is anybody like doing? What's an example of one that you can just buy just to look at what they're doing? Huh. Ciati thinks 2-inch is really the smallest you want to do with open prop builds. Ciati thinks that ductless 65mm makes no sense. Well, I mean, Bubby wouldn't agree. Well, I don't know. But 31mm. Oh, 65mm, 31mm. No, I see. Yeah. Too slow for the outside, can't fly it inside because they just bounce off the walls. I see your argument. Yeah. Ductless. June Loco loves their ductless microflies. But as far as the motor KV goes, I think you're going to, for outdoor, especially, you're going to want a higher KV. I'm thinking like 28,000 KV. I mean, that's not going to be any different than a ducted 65mm. But for outdoors, you would be much better looking at something like a 35mm or a 40mm prop. Like, for example, dun dun dun, the GOAT, the Odonata 40mm. You'd be much better building something like this with either 35 or 40mm props. like the Babito with the 35 millimeter props. This is a much better choice. The Flywoo Baby 2.0. I think they have a Baby 1.6. Hang on. Yeah, the FR 1.6. The Flywoo 1.6 is really nice. All of these have slightly larger props, but they're going to do way better for you outdoors. In terms of power, they're going to fly better. I don't know why you're sort of locked in on the 31 millimeter props, but that's a choice that many people will tell you is a mistake. Thank you, Sci-Fly, for £1. Is the new Fly Times 85 better than the Fly Lens 85? What's a Fly Times 85? Ooh, Fly Times 85. Is it better than the Fly Lens? I don't know. I haven't seen it. The hell is this? Got a metal cage? Are you kidding me? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I like the purple and gold, I will say. I mean, that's my color scheme. Probably a coincidence. What's it weigh?
The cage is TPU, apparently. That's interesting.
It's TPU? I thought it was metal.
No, the arms are metal, the cage is TPU.
I don't even know what to make of that. When presented with something new and different, my first reaction is like, just, yeah, burn the witch, burn the witch. Maybe this is a great idea, but it has to be proven to be a great idea. And I don't like being a guinea pig. I mean, as a product reviewer, it's my job to be a guinea pig. But as a customer, I would buy the Fly Lens 85 first, but until somebody tested this and showed me that it was a good idea. TPU? Like, how is that gonna... What's that gonna do? I don't know, man. I don't know. That's weird.
It looks like a tensegrity device.
But it isn't. I know what you mean.
Right. It does. It looks like one, though, with the way it's edged.
Yeah. Weird. All right, so that exists. Good to know. Quad City Bay Area, thank you for a $5 super chat. My Beta 85 Whoops 2S walk snail is starting to freeze video. Maybe because I changed the PIDs too high? If the video is freezing, I guess changing the PIDs too high could make the power really unstable and make the VTX freak out. I would certainly check the camera cable. And I would want to look for drops in the bitrate and latency, which would point to a problem with the VTX and not the camera. And if you made changes to the PIDs and then it started happening, I would put the PIDs back just as, process of elimination. Thank you for 900 rupees from Abraham Alex. Thanks for the opinion. Could you check the Brahma F405 Mark III? Could you also suggest some endurance motors for waypoint missions for a 7-inch quad? Maybe this was the one he wanted. Oh, I think we were looking at the wrong one. Well, appreciate the additional donation. Sorry about that. Brahma F405 Mark III. Is this the same one? No, it's the same. It's the same. It's the same one we were looking at. Nothing's different here. That's what I looked at. I'm confused. Could you suggest some endurance motors? 2809 sized motors for a 7-inch in the, let's say, 1100 kV on 6S. That would be a place to, start. Black Jungle says, if you have Walksnail freezing up, it could be that Walksnail is set on 100 FPS high frame rate mode, but you're using goggles that can't take a high frame rate mode. So check standard frame rate mode and see if that fixes it. Beancoro FPV wants to know, I recently switched from the DJI, there we go, from the DJI V2 goggles to the Integra goggles for my DJI O3 Air unit, and noticed I can no longer see all the elements I selected in the Betaflight OSD anymore. Make sure the OSD works completely different with the Integra. No, wait, you had the O3 on both of them. Are the goggles set to the goggles are set to standard canvas mode, and you need them to be set to HD canvas mode? That's my guess. Go to the display menu and check the canvas size or canvas mode, and make sure it's set to high HD, not normal. I bet that's it. I bet you're seeing the elements in the upper left corner of the screen, but the lower right corner of the screen is going off the bottom of the screen. Travone Suki had a bad crash with my Bob 5.7 and it messed up my XT port. Now when I push up on the throttle, it overshoots and I lose power in mid-flight. Fix your XT port? Fix your XT60? Like, I don't know. Is your battery messed up? Can you fix it? Can you replace the broken part? You're losing power. You told me that you crashed and broke your XT60 and now you're losing power in mid-flight. I'm going to guess your XT60 is broken and you're losing connection and you're powering down. So solder on a new XT60. That's my advice. How to fix. This is one of those questions where I feel a little bit bad because I feel like the answer is so obvious that maybe I'm misunderstanding it, and I don't want to disrespect your question by going, ugh. But also, sometimes people ask questions and the answer seems kind of very obvious, and they just need someone to tell them the obvious answer and go, that's what you should do. Thumbs up, you were right. And if that's the case, you were right. You need to replace the broken part that you know is broken. How to fix it. You solder on a new XT60. You buy the replacement part and you solder it on. And I can't explain how to do that. Do you need to learn how to solder? I have a video for that. As Michael Clark says, you fix it by fixing it. Okay. The Donnie Lama says, am I going to feel a significant difference between 200207 1800 kV and 2207 1950 kV? No. Nope. That's not that big of a difference. I doubt you'll feel much. Why not just go all the way to 2200 kV? And if you feel like that's too much, use a motor output limit to scale it down. Don't screw around, buddy. Get yourself some of those Min-Chan Kim, 2200 kV motors. And you will definitely notice a difference. And then if it's too much, you scale it down using the motor output limit in the Betaflight PID tuning tab. Travone asks, okay, fair. Fix the XT60. Why is the throttle overshooting? I can secure the battery as much as possible. Does that damage the other electronics? That's hard to say. Probably not damage anything, or you would know by now. Why does the throttle overshoot? Also hard to say. If something broke, maybe something is shaking around. Maybe there's more damage to the frame that you haven't found yet. Damage to the frame can cause throttle overshoots. It can cause vibrations that result in throttle overshoots. Yeah,
just to boil it down, I would just say you've provided a piece of information which is there's a damaged connector, right? And then it was working before this, and now it's overshooting. So with the information we have, we would say probably fix the damaged connector, see if it's still overshooting, and then move from there and see if you can figure out what damage has happened.
Nice. Yeah. Good advice. SG asks, is the new AG01 gimbals worth it for a pocket owner, or should I get the Boxer Crush as a second radio? Whether you want to get the Boxer Crush as a second radio depends on how happy you are with the pocket form factor. Many people who buy the pocket love the pocket form factor and would never want to buy a Boxer because they want that small, compact, portable radio. They just love it. And so, like, personally, I like the Boxer form factor. I like the larger gimbals and I like the larger radio. But I'm not everybody, and people differ. I do think the AG01 gimbals are a very nice upgrade. They are a premium upgrade. They are kind of like getting leather seats in your car, is the analogy I like to make. Leather seats in your car will not make you a better driver. They just mean that when you get in your car, you'll go, ooh, leather. I feel good today. And that's what the AG01s do for you. They don't make you a better pilot. Will they theoretically maybe last a little bit longer? Will they theoretically be a tiny bit more precise? Sure. But the factory gimbals are fine. They feel a little bit more premium, and they're nice. And if you have a little bit of money to spend and you just want to do something nice to upgrade your radio, get the AG01 gimbals. I love them. I have AG01 gimbals in all my radios because I'm just like, well, I'm a YouTube creator. I deserve it. I don't know. I just justify the cost to myself. And then if that doesn't work, I go, Radio Master, send me some gimbals. And sometimes they do. I don't really do that, but I could. But I respect myself too much. Or something.
I'll say two things about this. Maybe you mentioned this, but I missed it. But the Boxer Crush pricing versus the price of the gimbals alone, you might as well just buy a Crush. That's my opinion.
Valid. Totally valid.
It's insanely cheaper in the Crush for some reason. I don't know why. And that's a great radio, and it's a brand new radio. You can get in a nice color.
But he's talking about buying upgraded gimbals for his pocket, I believe.
Right, but I still think those are $130 or something, aren't they? Or are they cheaper?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, they're not cheap.
Okay.
The point is,
the Crush is like 190, and you get the AG01s now, or
yeah.
like it's like really cheap. So
if all you want is the experience of using AG01 gimbals, the Boxer Crush is the cheapest way to get into the AG01 gimbals. The price of the Boxer Crush with the AG01 gimbals is not that much more than the gimbals by themselves, and we don't really know why they're doing that. But if what you want is the pocket form factor, then it could be worth spending a little bit more money to upgrade the gimbals. But it's not going to be like, it's not going to make you a better pilot. They're just nice gimbals. Eamon Rhodes wants to know, when you charge LiPo batteries, do you need to plug both ports in or just one? You need to plug both the balance and the XT60, yeah. But if it's a dual channel charger or a 4-channel charger, you don't have to charge all 4 channels at once. Oh my God. They released a Pocket Crush. Shut up. Does this have AG01s? Or is it just the color?
No, the Boxer Crush has AG01s.
Yeah,
this one
no.
just has.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if they were doing AG01s for the whole Crush line. Got it. Okay. Ooh, it's a ridiculous price.
Yeah, just to clarify, my point was basically that you can get the gimbals for like 130, or you can get a whole radio for 200 that has the gimbals in it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Grayson Miller, who is also from Mobile, Alabama, Blunty. Sorry. He is also from Alabama, Mobile. I don't actually know which city you're in. But he says, I'm building my first FPV drone. What's the benefit of a dual channel receiver like the RP4TDM? If you have a diversity receiver, then you have 2 antennas, which means that if you mount them selectively, or if you mount them correctly, when one antenna gets like shadowed by the body of the quad, the other antenna has a good view. Or you can mount the antennas in 90-degree orientation so that when one of them is cross-polarized and getting a weaker signal, the other one is correctly polarized and getting a stronger signal. It basically lets you compensate for the shadowing of the antenna or the alignment of the antenna by having dual antennas in mixed alignment or mixed locations.
So Chad is pointing out that the AG1 Nanos are on pre-order for $60. I find it a little weird that they don't list them separately, but if they're going to be $60 for the set, which that's way cheaper than the other AGO1s, and then that's a different question.
Right. That's the full-size AGO1s that are like $130 for the set.
Well, and the minis are $100, but if these are going to be $60, then that's way cheaper.
Yeah. Let's see here. Have you tried the new Betaflight position hold beta? Have not. Betaflight 4.6 is going to have position hold in it. That's exciting. Pause hold is a great way to failsafe. They're so good. If that drone that had lost video had pause hold, I would not have freaked out nearly so freaking much. I would have just hit pause hold and then let it do its thing. Alt hold. Altitude hold or pause hold? Which is it? Is altitude hold? That's less interesting. Pause hold would be more interesting. Why do FPV drones need gyros? Why can't they just react to the environment and rely on pilot input? When you say react to the environment, what do you mean? Like with optical camera image processing? The gyro is a sensor that is used to react to the environment. The gyro detects the rotation of the drone. The pilot's inputs command a certain rotation of the drone. The gyro is doing exactly what you're saying, reacting to the environment. If you mean like sensors that detect the like what, like radar sensors, LiDAR sensors that detect, no. Yeah. The gyro tells the flight controller how the quadcopter is moving, and the fundamental thing the pilot does is tell the aircraft how to move. And it looks at how the aircraft is moving and relies on the pilot's input then to tell it what it needs to do. When you talk about reacting to the environment, you're talking about other sensors like rangefinders, like LiDAR sensors, like things that are sensing the environment, the ground, and so forth, and then moving the aircraft in relation to it. And that's much more sophisticated. The most basic thing the aircraft needs to do is detect its own orientation and movement. You couldn't do, I never say never, but like even if you had an aircraft that was relying on sonar, LiDAR, etc., you still would have a gyro, so it could get a very precise readout of its own movements, and you still would use that.
Can we bump? Oh.
Well, go ahead. What do you want to bump? Put it in purple.
We're just gonna bump. I got it at the bottom. We're gonna bump you for us this question because he deserves.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. Does Betaflight benefit from flight controllers that have more than one gyro? So there's two things to say about this. First of all, there are some flight controllers that have dual gyros but only use one gyro at a time. And in the CLI, you switch between which gyro they're using. This is not that interesting. Like, they would have one of them with a 32K capable gyro and one of them with an 8K capable gyro. That's all kind of silly these days, because Betaflight, first of all, doesn't do 32K anymore. All the gyros are doing basically the same sampling rate, and like, you would have two gyros, so like if you damaged one gyro, you could switch to the second one. Okay, so you have a spare gyro, I guess. But it's not that interesting. The gyros all perform very well. It's not like we're going to have one or the other, and one's going to do better in some position, some circumstance. You're going to switch between them. So these days, we don't see very many flight controllers with dual gyros. There was another kind of another reason to have two gyros known as sensor fusion. And with sensor fusion, what you do is you have two gyros and you mount them on the board. If you see that if you have two gyros and both of them are mounted facing the same direction, they both will measure the exact same vibrations. They both will read out the exact same data, but there will be a slight difference in the data because of the noise level. The gyros they'll have random noise and they'll output slightly different data, but you won't be able to do anything with that. But very smart people figured out that if you mount the gyros like at 90 degrees to each other, then what you can do is you can like subtract the y-axis from one gyro from the x-axis of the other gyro, and you can cancel out the noise. How does that work? I don't know. It's math. It's math and engineering that I'm not going to try to explain right now. But the idea is that by having dual gyros mounted at separate orientations, one way it's done is 90-degree orientation, and then sometimes they're also at 45-degree orientation. I don't know why. And then you do some fancy math, and basically you increase the signal to noise of the gyros. You push the noise floor down, and you get more accurate data. That's called sensor fusion. Betaflight is capable of doing sensor fusion, but we still don't see a lot of flight controllers that are actually doing that. And here's why. The problem with sensor fusion is we're taking the data from two sensors and we're combining it together. What if one of those sensors is screwed up? Now we're injecting bad data in with the good data, and we're not actually getting a better result. We're getting a worse result. And there wasn't, well, I'm not saying it couldn't have been done, but it was never done. Like you would think, well, I just look at the data, and if one of them is wildly off, then I assume that one's broken. Well, how do you know which one's broken? How do you know which one's right and which one's wrong? You could say if the two gyros diverge by more than a certain amount, then probably one of the gyros is bad, but you still don't know which gyro is bad. So for all the promise that sensor fusion had, what you'd end up with is you'd end up with a situation where, I don't know, my flight controller's flying like shit. What should I do? And actually, if you went in and you turned off one of the gyros, you could, by process of elimination, figure out which of the gyros was the bad gyro, and then go down and only use the good gyro, and then your flight controller would work again. But because you had two gyros on the flight controller, you doubled the chances that one of them was going to go bad over the lifespan of the flight controller. And so what happens is these flight controllers come out, they have sensor fusion. Oh, big deal. Your quadcopter flies so much better. No, it doesn't. It flies basically the same. I don't know. Maybe it was better. Who knows? And then you have twice as much chance that over the lifespan of the flight controller, one of the gyros goes bad and starts flying like crap. And then what do you do? So basically, yes, theoretically, there's an advantage to having dual gyros, but practically speaking, we don't really do it very much anymore in Betaflight because of that reason. All right. We just got a few more minutes left in the stream. Thanks for pointing out Yosferos with that massive $500 donation. He can have as many super chats as he wants, frankly. Let's get a couple more super chats out of the way just to make sure we cover them. What would you suggest other goggles compared to the Fat Shark Echo? The classic $100 analog goggle is the Eachine EV800 DM. It's been a go-to for people just getting into the hobby for a long, long time, and is a pretty solid goggle. The Fat Shark Echo, also a very solid goggle. Probably better build quality than the Eachine, just because Fat Shark tends to build good stuff, but you can compare. Turtle mode is spinning the props the wrong way and not flipping the quad over. Quad is props out. How can I fix this? Does it fly when it's right side up? When you activate turtle mode, does only two motors spin? Are you using D-Shot? Does
Also,
your ESC support D-Shot?
Also, what could flipping... I don't even understand wrong way. What does that mean? If two are spinning and they're going one way or the other, it's going to flip, right?
It doesn't reverse. It doesn't reverse the motors, so it's pulling the quad down instead of pushing it up.
Right, but then if you went the other way, it would flip it still, right? Like, are you saying
no? Because it just goes. Okay. It doesn't flip over.
I see.
So my guess is that you're using D-Shot, otherwise you wouldn't have turtle mode as an option. I'm going to guess that you're only spinning 2 props, so the flight controller knows turtle mode is active. I'm going to guess that your ESC is not reversing the motors. Although how an ESC could support D-Shot and not reverse the motors is hard for me to guess. But that's the only way I can think about it. Is something's wrong with your ESC where it's not reversing the motors. Let me ask you this. If you run the motor direction wizard and try to reverse the motors in Betaflight, do the motors reverse?
But that's like bugged in 443 and the motor still reverse, right?
For 44. Yeah.
Remember that was like 442, 443 bug where they wouldn't. Yeah.
But its turtle mode still worked. Damn.
Yeah.
That's a weird one. When should I buy a TXCO receiver? When you expect to use the receiver in extreme temperatures and you want to make sure that you absolutely maximize the range. If you're not concerned about maximizing range and or you tend to use the receiver in like non-extreme temperatures, that's fine. Also, just you just have money to spend, just buy the TXCO. Yeah.
I think Ciati has the correct answer, because I've seen that happen. Ciati says if it's on older firmware, having the beeper on a switch before turtle mode could cause them to go the wrong direction when you turtle. Oh. It's because they're already spinning from the beep. And they either won't work in turtle or it will spin. I've seen that happen.
Okay. Very nice. That is a weird one. So if you have beeper on a switch so that the motors beep right before you go into turtle mode, it causes that problem? Wow.
Yes.
Well done, Ciati. Levy FPV. Okay, Fat Shark Echo. Fat Shark Echo is my choice. I'd rather take the Fat Shark Echo than the Eachine, but you asked, would you suggest another goggle, so I did. If you don't like the Fat Shark Echo for some reason and you want just another one, Eachine EV800DM is the selection. But I would pick the Fat Shark Echo first. I hope that's what you wanted. The Therapist says, is your frame the same as the Johnny V2? No, it's not identical. Will you have the availability to have attachments to have secondary cam or access to hold GPS, etc.? We have the 3D pin for a GPS, yes. Secondary cam, no. I don't think you'd lose, Ciati. I'm not sure you'd lose. I think these days you might know more weird Betaflight bugs than I do. But the good news is we all work together. It's help solve problems. Sunshine says, I put my beeper and turtle mode on the same 3-position switch. Beeper goes off in position 2 and 3, turtle mode in position 3. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah, that's why Ciati said older firmware.
I have beeper on the same switch as turtle. Betaflight just asked me to arm when turtle. Yeah, in later versions of Betaflight, it has, if the motors were just beeping, it has an enforced timeout before it will arm. And that solves that issue. All right. All right, guys, that's going to bring us to the end of the stream. Thank you so much to everybody who donated. Thanks to everybody who asked questions. For anybody whose question I was not able to get to, and there were many of you, But you're always welcome to email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. And, you won't get the pleasure of hearing me shit on your question live, but I will politely answer your question in email. So some would say that's better. You don't get near as much sass in email. Mostly. Please feel free to reach out if I didn't get to you. We're never able to get to all the questions, but that's just the nature of a live stream. Siadi is going to be streaming. He's doing some giveaways. He's going to be flying at Pride Atlanta and talking about batteries and doing a Q&A. Head on over to his stream. Their link is in the chat and on screen right now. Best of luck to you, man.
And we'll be back Sunday, right?
We'll be back Sunday. That's correct. We will be back Sunday. We'll see you there.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everybody.